Okay, let's take a poll. How weird does it feel to be called someone's fiance, right? The first time you hear it, you do like a double take. Your heart kind of flutters, and before you know it, you go from, let's just enjoy this moment, to we're planning a fall wedding. That's where Zola comes in. Zola has everything you need to plan your wedding in one place and have fun along the way. From free planning tools like a budget tracker, super necessary, and website, to a venue and vendor discovery tool that matches you with your dream team, everything on Zola is designed to make your wedding journey as easy as possible. And with invites that can be completely customized and a wedding registry packed with gifts you actually want. Zola takes you from save our date to thanks so much without breaking a sweat. From getting engaged to getting married, Zola has everything you need to plan your wedding in one place. Start planning at Zola.com. That's ZOLA.com. Happy wedding.
Big shout out to you for making it through the hectic holiday season. This new year, get clean, quality, pregnancy nutrient support off your to-do list, including Ritual's best-selling Essential Prenatal Multivitamin, designed with 12 traceable key ingredients to support a healthy pregnancy. With big changes coming up, take the small steps now and start today with 30% off a 3-month supply at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Hey there. Ritual here to give a big shout out to you for making it through the hectic holiday season. The magic of those family moments, that was you. And now there's new milestones to prep for in 2025. This new year, check clean, quality, pregnancy nutrient support off your to-do list with Ritual. We've done the research to create science-backed pregnancy support like our prenatal multivitamin, natal choline, and fertility support, all designed to be taken alongside each other. But don't just take our word for it. They're also third-party tested for microbes and heavy metals and Clean Label Project certified. So whether you're trying, thinking about trying, or already there, we don't have to tell you that prioritizing yourself can be the hardest part. That's why we're helping you get started today with 30% off a 3-month supply for a limited time at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
My favorite online investigative journalism show, so go check that out. You guys probably already know his name and learned about me from him, my being on his show. But anyway, tonight we're going to talk about this Jeffrey Epstein case. The reason why I wanted to talk with Ed is a couple recent developments in the case. I'd followed his excellent reporting on Epstein. I believe he had Pierce Redmond on talking about the case. Maybe some other guests if we can jog my memory. But really what's come up recently, well, there was a big article in the Miami Herald in November of 2018 that really covered the case in detail. There was a lot of video. It was, I think, a 6-part series. And then most recently, even just this month, during the confirmation of William Barr, our new Attorney General has just been confirmed and I believe signed in yesterday. Ben Sass was one of the talkers, but he informed or asked the DOJ, the Department of Justice, to look again and look at the probe of the 2008 agreement of Jeffrey Epstein. So this is fairly recent, but Ed is really very knowledgeable about this, and I'm glad that he's taking some time out. He just had some surgery, so I really appreciate you being here. Ed, are you there?
William, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Cool, man. So maybe we can just start for people who really don't know the details of the case. Maybe you can just do a 5-minute primer on just who Jeffrey Epstein was, why he's important, and what happened about his case that was such an injustice.
I was sitting in a waiting room one day, and I saw this magazine, and it was something about this curious case of this hedge fund billionaire down in Palm Beach, and how he was had 3 little girls come into his Palm Beach mansion every day, 12, 13, 14-year-old girls, to give him massages, and he would escalate the activity to escalate the statutory rate. He was paying like $100, and he had like a multi-level marketing deal going on where they would recruit their friends, and get paid. And I says, wow, what a story, man. I had never heard of this on the news, the TV, radio. I listened to all the alt media stations everywhere. And so 5 years ago, when I first got my first radio show, I said, I got to do a show about this. The only person I could find who even knew a little bit about it was Robert Morrow, the guy who wrote the book. He used to author books for Roger Stone. He's a guy from Texas. And I had him on the show. And the first thing I asked him was, because I had looked into this and I'd seen all kind of bizarre connections with Epstein and Trump. And I said, hey, well, what about Trump's connection to Epstein? But Robert Moore is a strict Republican at the time. He was a Trump supporter. He was working for Roger Stone. He wrote the book, The Clinton War on Women. And he says, no, Ed, I'm telling you, Trump likes adult, big-breasted women, just like I do. Because, Stone's kind of a character. He's out there, but he's definitely no fan of child abuse, that's for sure. And he knew a lot of details on the case. But even though still I had been so updated on the case that I did a whole hour. The first time I ever did an hour solo by myself after I had Robert Moore on as a guest, where I really outlined this whole thing. Jeffrey Epstein came from Brooklyn, from a middle-class family. He went to a public school, high school. The kind of school, I forget the name of it. It was like one of those I think it was Coney Island. Okay, so just imagine. That's the kind of school you'd see on Welcome Back, Kotter. Okay? Mm-hmm. All right? That's
like real middle class, like true right down the line.
Lower middle class,
Lower middle class.
Yeah, okay. Comes out of there. He doesn't even graduate college. Somehow he winds up teaching at a middle school, the Dalton School, which is a private school in Manhattan, where the little girls wear these little Catholic school uniforms that he's attracted to, that he's talked about being attracted to. One of his students from there, he has some kind of a friendship or a mentoring with this little girl, and whatever happened there. And her father worked for, I believe, Lehman Brothers or Goldman Sachs, one of those big companies. Somehow, Mr. Epstein wrangles his way into a partnership over there. Then he leaves there, some say amid some kind of scandal or whatever, but he leaves there and he goes on to start his own hedge fund company, and he declares, I will only have exclusive billionaire clients. The only client we know about is Leslie Wexler, who owned the most expensive piece of property in Manhattan next door to Bill Cosby. Interesting neighborhood.
Right, and Wexler was like, his background was it, what was the clothing line that made him money?
Oh, Victoria's Secrets.
Victoria's Secret, right.
The Limited.
So he was, Limited, that's right.
Right, and if you ever go into, if you don't have a tween little girl, like I raised a daughter from exclusively until 18 years old, and when we would go shopping for clothes for her when she was 8, 9, 10 years old, they had a store called The Limited 2, which was targeted toward girls under 10, under 12. And very provocative clothing for little girls, and you wonder, well, why can't we buy normal clothes for little girls? Why does it have to that we have to be editing out so much clothes that I wouldn't let my daughter go near? And I'm no prude, you know me. So Leslie Wexler is his only known client, Leslie Wexler. And Leslie Wexler gave him the most expensive piece of property in Manhattan for, I believe, $1. There's some question about where whether it was sold, transferred, Wexler may still own it. Nobody knows. Okay, gotcha. So Epstein gets into some shenanigans with some guy. They call it a Ponzi scheme, whatever. This guy, what's his name here? This is all Pierce Redmond's work, the part I'm about to give you now.
Okay.
The guy's name is, where is this? I just talked to... Oh, wait a minute. It'll be over here. Let me find it here. Wait a second. Let me. But anyway, this guy down in Florida has a connection to Roger Stone, too, by the way. Oh, the guy's name is Scott Rothstein. Went to prison. He was running some kind of they call it a multi-level Ponzi scheme type of operation. But it had something to do with selling futures in lawsuit settlements, that they would get investors to run the lawsuit and then they'd get a payoff at the end, kind of a litigation financing business, you might call it.
Right.
And Roger Stone was involved in that business. Interesting. Yeah, right? Roger Stone, who also worked with that company, Nexum, also had his own little nonsense.
Well, supposedly worked with Nexium, right? I mean, that's what Nexium or the people claim that he was involved. Was there any proof that he's really with them?
No, just what I've heard. You're right. I don't have any personal proof that you corrected me.
I've heard the rumor that the reason why the Nexium people said that Roger Stone was working for them or were around them was to get them some press and hopefully get them donations to fight their legal bills, is what my understanding is. That's what I've heard.
Okay, great. But also, too, we've seen his Craigslist ad, which first he claimed was an FBI Operation Sting, where he was trying to find men to come and sleep with his wife. Which, by the way, was the same exact allegations against Paul Manafort. If you read the emails from his daughters that were hacked out of there, they're talking about the same exact stuff, man, about Paul Manafort passing his wife around to strange men.
Yeah, and they featured that aspect of Roger Stone's life in his documentary, Go Find Me, Roger Stone, I think.
Really?
The title.
I never got a chance to watch it. Yeah, Get Me, Roger Stone, it's called. I've never had a chance.
Yeah, and it ends with Roger Stone walking into Trump Tower.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Very interesting. But they did address his sordid underworld. I mean, I think he recently said that he's tried every sexual thing in the book. So,
well, Robert Morrow, I just interviewed him. He tells me that Stone told him that he had an affair with Ann Coulter.
That's what I heard, yeah. So.
But it's interesting, too.
I'm sure he could tell stories.
Yeah, Well, I had him on for an hour. He told me some great stories. As a matter of fact, his falling out with Stone, which he has a serious falling out with Stone right now, and his falling out with Trump is centered around the Katie Doe lawsuit.
Right, which we can get into. I mean, that's a side issue, but that Katie Doe came up during the election, and then a bunch of strange stuff happened, and it disappeared.
Oh, no, yeah, they dropped the suit a week before the election, November 1st, I think it was.
Right.
After,
I mean, there's Wayne Madsen is making some really serious allegations about Trump, too, and involving girls the same age as Epstein's coterie of girls. And Trump there's pictures of Trump and Epstein together.
Oh, no, absolutely. There's no doubt that there's a huge connection between Trump and Epstein. Trump was quoted by Vicky Ward in the New Yorker magazine in her piece, The Curious Mr. Epstein, about how he said, the quote is, and I made a meme about it, actually, where it says, he booms into his speakerphone, "Oh, Jeff Epstein, we've been great friends for 15 years. This is paraphrased. He sure likes it. A lot of people say he loves beautiful women more than I do, and many of them on the younger side." And then he says, "Bet Jeffrey Epstein sure enjoys his social life." So he makes an allegation to it was well known in these circles that Epstein was chasing around young girls.
And Epstein operated in those circles, and he lived fairly close to Mar-a-Lago, is my understanding. I don't think they were more than half a mile away, if that.
It is walking distance. I've been challenged on that, and someone actually measured it. I think it's about 3 miles. Okay, I can walk
3 miles. Okay, well,
I can walk 3 miles. Okay,
it's fairly close
in the desert.
But it's in a Tony upscale. He lived. I mean, Epstein somehow made it to an upscale part of Florida, and that's where the abuses started quite a long time ago now. It's been 2018, and his agreement was 2008. So, sometime during the Bush administration is when Epstein's, abuses really started. Is that true?
Yes, and there was a lengthy investigation by the Palm Beach police where they actually had cameras set up next door. They took, they stole his trash every day because this wasn't a secret what was going on in this town. One of the women, the young girls, the children that Epstein was raping was Virginia Roberts, who was an employee. They found her at Mar-a-Lago when she was working there at 14, 15 years old, folding towels in the ladies' room. Ghislaine Maxwell was a friend of Trump and a friend of Epstein, and her role,
really the closest friend of Epstein, is my understanding.
Yeah, they had a relationship at one point, then had some kind of broken up relationship. But her father was Robert Maxwell, this notorious Mossad guy in England, who was a con man and involved with the tabloids up there. Notorious character who died mysteriously.
And he looted the pensions of the Globe or one of these newspapers and stole $60 million. He basically knew a lot. Supposedly was a Mossad operative. My understanding, and I got to flesh this out, get more understanding, but he apparently threatened the Mossad with revealing some secrets, and then he was found on a boat, off the boat of his boat in the Mediterranean, drowned.
Exactly. And Ghislaine, the daughter, and by the way, everybody complains about the name, how I pronounce that, but the thing is, that's how it's spelled, so that's how I pronounce it for people,
It's a funny spell, Ghislane.
And you got to be careful when people know how to pronounce it, because usually those are people that are a little bit more involved than they want you to know they are. Okay, which is something I've discovered here. Because you talk about the Mossad connection of Ghislaine, who was a helicopter pilot, by the way, too. Fascinating enough, okay, and her dad. But there was a book written about the Epstein case by a woman named Conchita Sarnoff. I had her on my show as well.
Yep.
She wrote a book called Traffic King. And she happened to be friends with what a marvelous coincidence. She happened to be friends with Donald Trump. She was friends with Ghislaine Maxwell, and she was friends with Jeffrey Epstein before all these allegations became public. Oh my goodness! She just happens to coincidentally run an organization to aid child trafficking victims and human trafficking and sex trafficking victims.
Yeah. Right.
And when you look up her organization, she has a Beverly Hills telephone number, but her organization's based down there in Palm Beach. She hangs out at all these places. And, when you look up, what do? Well, they throw a lot of balls. They throw a lot of these big, fancy, expensive balls to raise money. But then you don't quite see what projects they have going on. But I guess it takes a lot of balls to run an operation like that. And she chose as her publisher a Mossad agent named Victor Ostrovsky.
My God, right. And None Shall Call It Deception, or what was the name of his book?
Yeah, well, it's a book about deception.
Yeah, right. It's about his time in the Mossad. He was like a whistleblower.
Right, and using deception in your work. And all of his publishing companies have names like the cover story and the front. You know what I mean? So this woman and her balls has the opportunity to use any publisher out there. She could self-publish. She could find publishers, but she shows a Mossad agent should be her publisher, which is
the name of Ostrovsky's book is Mossad by Way of Deception, which comes from a biblical quote: "By way of deception, thou shalt make war."
And interesting enough, he actually called me up. We had the interview booked, but he called me up to make himself known to me prior to the interview.
Gotcha. Did you interviewed Ostrovsky?
Nah, he wanted to be interviewed. I don't know if he would come back now, and I don't know if I want to be on the radar of all these kind of people all the time. I think I'm already involved in way too much.
Well, that's an important component of the Epstein case.
Yes.
Here's this kind of lower middle class guy who only has one rich client, who somehow has this opulent lifestyle with no real known employment, right? Like, I mean, he has one client. He's not out there hustling trying to get business from a bunch of other people. He just has one benefactor, which is very odd and unusual. So he has a guy worth $4.5 billion. And I mean, some of the details that came out, Virginia Roberts, who you mentioned, she got married and went to Australia. Like, she got out of the country as one of the victims. But there's a picture of her, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Prince Edward, so of the royal family together when she was like 15. And she was in this Miami, when I mentioned at the intro, the Miami Herald writings or journals.
Okay, let's take a poll. How weird does it feel to be called someone's fiance, right? The first time you hear it, you do like a double take. Your heart kind of flutters, and before you know it, you go from, let's just enjoy this moment, to, we're planning a fall wedding. That's where Zola comes in. Zola has everything you need to plan your wedding in one place and have fun along the way. From free planning tools like a budget tracker, super necessary, and website, to a venue and vendor discovery tool that matches you with your dream team, everything on Zola is designed to make your wedding journey as easy as possible. And with invites that can be completely customized and a wedding registry packed with gifts you actually want. Zola takes you from save our date to thanks so much without breaking a sweat. From getting engaged to getting married, Zola has everything you need to plan your wedding in one place. Start planning at Zola.com. That's ZOLA.com. Happy wedding.
Hey there. Ritual here to give a big shout out to you for making it through the hectic holiday season. The magic of those family moments, that was you. And now there's new milestones to prep for in 2025. This new year, check clean, quality pregnancy nutrient support off your to-do list with Ritual. We've done the research to create science-backed pregnancy support like our prenatal multivitamin, natal choline, and fertility support, all designed to be taken alongside each other. But don't just take our word for it. They're also third-party tested for microbes and heavy metals and Clean Label Project certified. So whether you're trying, thinking about trying, or already there, we don't have to tell you that prioritizing yourself can be the hardest part. That's why we're helping you get started today with 30% off a 3-month supply for a limited time at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Big shout out to you for making it through the hectic holiday season. This new year, get clean, quality, pregnancy nutrient support off your to-do list, including Ritual's best-selling Essential Prenatal Multivitamin, designed with 12 traceable key ingredients to support a healthy pregnancy. With big changes coming up, take the small steps now and start today with 30% off a 3-month supply at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Journalism that came out on November 18th, she was in there, but she was videotaped as well, talking about how Epstein had hundreds of victims. So it's people have this kind of, it seems like in a lot of the conversations they have, like, oh, this guy was just victimizing 5 or 10 people. Not according to the victims, that's not the case. He had rotating victims coming in and out, being farmed out, and hanging out with and traveling on these jets, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't want to get lost. See, the whole thing about the jets and the Lolita Express and the little black book and pedophile island, whenever you hear these expressions, that's the low-hanging fruit that's put out there for you by these people with the balls, okay? Because and with the Mossad connections. They want you to think this is all on airplanes and jets and off on islands.
Right.
This happened in Manhattan. This happened next door to Bill Cosby. Nobody's talking about Bill. By the way, Trump has an island right next to Epstein's island. Did you know that?
Right. So maybe we can talk about that. That part of the story is that he had a private jet with a black book that was leaked by somebody who worked for Epstein, who subsequently died. That had names of people on there that, names that we all know. Names like Kevin Spacey, Bill Clinton. Courtney Love. So Epstein had a book. He had a Rolodex, so to speak, of famous people that he was associating with.
Yeah, it was the butler who coined the name Lolita Express. He tried to sell that little black book, and the little black book had many, many names in it, but the ones that were underlined was code for massage, which is what was code for going with these girls. Gotcha. The thing is, too, you got to remember, it was Ghislaine Maxwell's job to go out, and this is talked about in the Miami Herald article, which, by the way, and let's go on the record here, I'm totally unimpressed with that whole coverage there. But the thing is that her role was to go around to the different massage resorts and spas and stuff like that and try and recruit girls to give massages. Okay? But she was recruiting a 15-year-old towel folder in this case. Now, there's no way you can tell me that Mr. Donald Trump, who lived at Mar-a-Lago, keep in mind, he lives there. Okay, that's his house. That's where his kids go. That's where his wife goes. That's where, right? And you're telling me he doesn't know what goes on under his own roof? He was friends with Ghislaine Maxwell. He knows this little girl, Virginia Roberts. He knows her dad. Her dad worked there in the maintenance department and retired with his own horse ranch on a maintenance worker's salary under the great Mr. Donald Trump. Now, if you look at some of the lawsuits with Trump, he was sued at a golf course, a property owned in Los Angeles, and one of the complaints they had over there is that when he would show up 3 times a year, he would complain about that there weren't enough attractive women working there. So he would have they would have to schedule attractive women on the days they knew he was coming. So he had such attention to detail what was going on. This other property only visited there 4 or 5 times a year. But you're trying to tell me that the property that he lived at, where friends of his are there recruiting his employees, and he's not aware of what's going on? I find that very hard to believe.
Well, I also find it, these are the girls that came forward for the Miami Herald. When they were children being raped, they obviously were not sophisticated. They were not wearing, now they're older, they're 30, maybe 35, talking about their experiences. But there's probably a whole host of other people. And there clearly have been lawsuits, according, to information that Epstein is settling civil cases with a variety of different people. So, the amount of victims that are public, and those cases probably have some kind of NDA or non-publicity element to it. Like, you can't go forward if we give you this money. So, there's probably a lot more to that story than is known publicly. But I think that just going back to Epstein and going back to his conviction is that according to the Miami Herald article, when he came to an agreement after he got, I think, arrested, but they were actually the something very odd happened. Well, bigwigs got involved with his case. Ken Starr, who wrote the Starr report about the Clinton, upon which our now Supreme Court Justice worked on, what was his name? Kavanaugh. Brett Kavanaugh worked for Starr during the Starr report, but Starr was involved in the defense for Epstein and all these bigwigs. And they said in that article, which was remarkable, nothing I had ever heard of, is that the prosecutor sent the charges to the defense to have them edited and send it back. It's off the charts. So there's all this inappropriate. And then the person who was involved with that case, who was the head chief prosecutor, I believe at the time in Florida, is now the head of the Department of Agriculture, correct? Acosta?
Yeah, Acosta wrote during all this time. I just want to back up for real quick. One thing, you talk about Andrew York, Epstein, and Trump. There are photographs of the three of them attending a tennis tournament at Mar-a-Lago, okay? The photographs themselves have been scrubbed, but we have the titles. They came up I think it was a docu-search that came up. And as far as Virginia Roberts, too, you talk about the photograph with Virginia Roberts with Prince Andrew and Ghislaine Maxwell. There's other photographs of this little child where she's on the Staten Island ferry, where the photographs were attached to a lawsuit, one of the original lawsuits. This is a little girl. This is a little kid, man, wearing a sweatshirt and shorts and stuff like that. This is not some teenage kid, man. This was a little kid when she first got mixed up with these people. And there's transcripts of her conversations with her mother, her poor mother, where her mother saying, you have to get away from these people somehow. You have to figure out how to get away from them. Now, you got to remember, too,
What lawsuit was that? I don't understand.
That's one of the very, very original lawsuits against the victim.
The civil case against him, right?
One of the Brad Edwards lawsuits down there.
Gotcha.
For the big one, the one that really counts, the one that's going against the victims' rights advocacy department there.
Right, because that was the chief complaint of these girls, is that they were denied their rights under the victims' advocacy. There's a statute in Florida that they say they were supposed to be sign off on the conviction, right? And that never happened.
Yeah, well, in any kind of case, you notify the victims of what's going on. They made no effort in this case whatsoever. It was hidden from them on purpose. It said this was done in a sealed, what do you call the penalty phase was sealed.
Right.
It's outrageous.
And so that was, and Dershowitz, it was Dershowitz, Starr, all these bigwigs came in. It was kind of like a little dream team, right?
Right, and that's what's, because when you mentioned Acosta's low-hanging fruit as well. We know about Acosta because he wrote a 3-page letter talking about that. Oh my goodness, when I was down there in the Southern District, the Attorney General down there, prosecutor's office, they were investigating my family and they put political pressure on me. They had private investigators chasing me around. And he wrote this 3-page letter. Now, how do we know about that 3-page letter? Well, it goes back to the balls. Conchita Sarnoff was the spokesperson on that. She's the one who broke that story and published that letter. That's how we know about Mr. Acosta, and I bought into it at the time. I was talking about this. Oh, my goodness, they put pressure on him. This is like Rudy Giuliani. Go back and listen to some of my first interviews on this thing. My first shows I did about this, man. I was a babe in the woods back in those days, man. Okay? So
you're saying Conchita Alonso is like a limited hangout operative who only puts out a quarter or half of the story intentionally.
I'm saying she's got some great balls, man. She puts on these great balls. Okay, whatever else she's up to, man, I don't know. All I can tell you is the facts. She got a Mossad publisher, an organization with a number in Beverly Hills and a thing down in Florida. She knows everybody's involved, and she puts out a book on it.
She was also kind of involved in the whole Haiti fiasco as well, too, right?
Well, you know what, man? I didn't catch that one, but I'd love to look into that some more. That was so
okay, because I think that she did the same thing where they didn't get into the pretty gnarly details of the totality of the trafficking that was going on down there and the looting and stuff like that. So,
I got to tell you,
and that's not outside of the realm of possibility that these very wealthy people, give somebody a donation of $250,000. They just say talk the party line. I want you to talk about this, blah, blah, blah.
Anything's possible, and I've talked to a lot of people down there in that Palm Beach circles and stuff like that, and it seems like one day they're saying one thing, the next day they're saying something else. And I could tell you something else. I've been working on a sex trafficking case up here in Nevada. There's no resources available for these young women that are being brutalized and thrown out and getting arrested when you go to the cops for help. They get arrested.
Right. It sounds like the the whole thing that went down in Omaha, where the victims
Right.
actually go to jail, right?
Right. So I can tell you, in real life, it's not all this pretty thing where you have these balls and everybody's being taken care of. I haven't been invited to these balls.
Gotcha. Well, did you ever read about the story of Hunter S. Thompson when he went down to Palm Beach? No. And it just the people were very strange and fake, and these are very, I can't remember the name of the book that he wrote about that, but
you
I think maybe it was a series of articles.
Mention Acosta. Okay, Acosta was the guy down there in charge of this case. He's the one that gave them the sweetheart deal. By the way, too, there was some negotiations too between, I believe it was either Comey or Mueller. In this, who was the head of the FBI, who actually used Epstein as some type of informant in this case.
Confidential was the CI. He was a confidential informant.
Right around the same time.
So that's another. Mueller was working and had possible leniency with somebody who was raping and trafficking underage girls.
Absolutely. There's no doubt that there's been leniency. Leniency.
Supreme, right. So that's why this guy Sass is having it looked over, and William Barr is going to look into it. God only knows what the results will be. But
wait, William Barr worked for the same, what is that, the Eccles and whatever, Kirkland and Ellis. I always get that name wrong. William Barr, anyway, well, Miami Herald, right? And everybody's coming out, oh my goodness. There's this guy down in Palm Beach, and he used political influence to get out of these serious charges. He was facing 40 years. Anybody, you or me, would have got life. He's facing 40 years.
Question.
Yeah. And he used political influence to get out of this. And then the next week, William Barr is being appointed Attorney General.
Right.
Okay. And he worked for the company. He worked for Kirkland and Ellis before this and after this. And everybody said, now Ben Sass. Okay, I sent these letters to the Department of Justice. We want to look into all this. And he's Acosta, right? Because Acosta was the guy down there. And then Trump appoints Acosta to be the head of the Labor Department, right? He's Secretary of Labor.
Right. So it doesn't hurt his career. He actually, steps up in his political career, right?
But what
after
about,
giving the sweetheart deal?
Right, and Ben Sass, who I suppose we're gonna look into him in a minute. But okay, well, boy, Ben Sass is a hero. He's writing a letter to DOJ. He wants this looked into. He wants us to look into Acosta, because we know about Acosta from Conchita, the balls, right?
Gotcha.
But does anybody know the name Bruce Reinhardt?
Not me.
Nobody knows, because it's
So who's Bruce Reinhardt?
Well, no, but William is supposed to be looking over here, man, at the airplanes and then the island, man. I don't have you distracted yet. Bruce Reinhardt was the assistant U.S. attorney under Mr. Acosta, who quit his job January 1st, 2008, and went to work representing Jeffrey Epstein on January 2nd, 2008.
Wow. Crazy.
But nobody knows his name.
All the information that they had at the office and then goes to work for the guy. That should not even be legal. That shouldn't even be legal. Off the charts.
There was another case. It was even worse than that I saw recently. I forget. I'll probably never remember right now, but it was even worse than that. What was it? Another day. But so that kind of...
Well, here's another thing about Acosta is that there were only state charges. There were no federal charges, even though the women were or the girls were being trafficked outside of the country and into New York and all these multi-state elements that would involve the FBI or Department of Justice.
Well, absolutely, but I know kidnapping is a federal offense. I'm sure human trafficking is too on some level. They can get themselves involved in so many various ways, civil rights. But the thing is,
the other thing that the public may not know about the sweetheart deal that Epstein got is that it was only, I think, 18 months.
Yeah.
And he served time, and he was allowed to leave jail. It was just a very soft sentence, but I think that he could spend time at home or have weekends off. I don't even remember, but he wasn't sitting in jail for the whole time.
Oh, no. It was 18 months. He only did 13 months. It was done in a private wing, not even in the state police, state prison or the county jail. It was in the sheriff's jail in a private wing that was being refurbished after he'd given them a $90,000 donation to that same sheriff's department. He only had to stay there Monday to Saturday. During a sleepover, Monday to Saturday, he had to stay there all day Sunday. and then he could leave. He had a special office set up down there where he hired off-duty sheriffs to take him back and forth to the office and stand outside his door and wait for him at the office. So a lot of shenanigans went on there as well. I believe it was Nick Bryant who got a hold of his commissary records. And the guy, even with the little bit of time he was spending there all by himself, he had to buy Jergens hand lotion down there because he still couldn't keep his hands off himself while doing 8 hours a night in a jail. Okay, one of his most
right. And Nick Bryant wrote about the Franklin scandal. So
right, and I had
that was what happened in Omaha, Nebraska.
Interesting too. I had Nick Bryant on the show about this. He didn't really want to talk about Epstein. He wanted to talk about the other one, but I got him to talk a little bit. Now,
well, this one is clearly still current. Epstein is happening again, so it hasn't really gone away. I mean, the federal charges were dropped in his agreement, which was, according to these the Miami Herald article, that was a much larger investigation. So it just kept it an in-state thing. I mean, and the larger international or definitely multi-state aspects of Epstein were never, made public as much.
One other point I wanted to make about his jail stay, and then we'll get back to the Miami Herald article in a second, is that the jail stay, one of his most frequent visitor to the jail, and remember, he was only there one full day. When he could get visit, why would anybody want to visit him there? One of his most frequent visitors was Jean-Luc Brunel. Jean-Luc Brunel.
Jean-Luc Brunel, the French director, right?
Oh, no. He's a French modeling scout.
Okay, Jean-Luc Brunel. Gotcha.
He's a modeling scout who was exposed on 60 Minutes for drugging and roofing these little teenage girls in his modeling scouting business. By the way,
was he associated with that other guy from Elite Modeling?
No.
Okay,
I just had Michael Gross on the show, okay? And he's the guy who wrote that article, and I think it was the Daily Beast. Michael Gross is a well-known guy in New York City. He's done a lot of gossip stuff like that, but he worked for the New York Times, and he's written some books about real estate and about the modeling business.
Okay, let's take a poll. How weird does it feel to be called someone's fiance, right? The first time you hear it, you do like a double take. Your heart kind of flutters, and before you know it, you go from, let's just enjoy this moment, to we're planning a fall wedding. That's where Zola comes in. Zola has everything you need to plan your wedding in one place and have fun along the way. From free planning tools like a budget tracker, super necessary, and website, to a venue and vendor discovery tool that matches you with your dream team, everything on Zola is designed to make your wedding journey as easy as possible. And with invites that can be completely customized and a wedding registry packed with gifts you actually want. Zola takes you from save our date to thanks so much without breaking a sweat. From getting engaged to getting married, Zola has everything you need to plan your wedding in one place. Start planning at Zola.com. That's ZOLA.com. Happy wedding.
Hey there. Ritual here to give a big shout out to you for making it through the hectic holiday season. The magic of those family moments, that was you. And now there's new milestones to prep for in 2025. This new year, check clean, quality pregnancy nutrient support off your to-do list with Ritual. We've done the research to create science-backed pregnancy support like our prenatal multivitamin, natal choline, and fertility support, all designed to be taken alongside each other. But don't just take our word for it. They're also third-party tested for microbes and heavy metals and Clean Label Project certified. So whether you're trying, thinking about trying, or already there, we don't have to tell you that prioritizing yourself can be the hardest part. That's why we're helping you get started today with 30% off a 3-month supply for a limited time at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
It's 2025, a new year, and the perfect time to turn your business dreams into reality. Maybe you've been tossing around a great idea, but haven't acted yet. Well, Shopify is how you're going to make it happen. Shopify makes it simple to create your brand, open for business, and make your first sale. With thousands of customizable templates, you don't need coding or design skills. Just drag, drop, and go. Plus, Shopify's social media tools help you connect all your channels and create shoppable posts so you can sell everywhere your customers scroll. Managing your business is easy too. From shipping to taxes to payments, Shopify handles the details on a single dashboard, letting you focus on what really matters: growing your business. established in 2025, has a nice ring to it.
And he wrote an article about Trump having these parties at Plaza Hotel, when he owned the Plaza Hotel, with a bunch of teenage models there. And he was also involved, too, with that BBC documentary, Is Trump a Sex Pest? And I had two of the young models on my show who made allegations against Trump along the same lines, being hit on by Trump when they were 16 years old, and offered drugs and alcohol and all kind of stuff. And even talked about Trump having a 17-year-old Haitian teenage model right around that same time. And there's been other things that have been going on in the background with this, where I haven't gotten somebody on the show yet, but I've talked to him off the air. We've communicated off the air. I've offered to get him attorneys and stuff like that. Of other serious allegations of the same nature, not just of Trump, but of people around Trump. And by the way, talk about, since this Miami Herald article came on, everybody's talking about this now like it just suddenly happened. Donnie Deutsch, the well-dressed, dresses like a dandy, to quote Piers Resman, out there on Morning Joe, right, comes out and says, hey, I had contacts. I had a breakfast meeting with Jeffrey Epstein, and we were going to buy a publication. By the way, Epstein's involved in all these Radar Online and all these things. That other one that got shut down by Hulk Hogan, that other magazine.
Right. Yes, I know exactly. Yeah, all these online journalist stuff.
Gawker, I think it is.
Epstein, Gawker, yes. Yeah. Gawker lost. Yeah.
Epstein's sending the money, bailing these guys out. Okay.
Well, you had said, I think with some of your reporting, you had said that it was Epstein's idea that the Clinton Foundation was created, right?
There's a 24-page letter. You can find it at OppermanReport.com in my member section for as little as $6 a month. And it's exclusive to me. I don't know anybody else has this thing. People ask me for it all the time, so they can't be able to find it online. Where Jerry Lefcourt, who used to be Abby Hoffman's lawyer, who I met a few times back in New York City way back in the 80s, and now turned out to be one of Jeffrey Epstein's lawyers. And he wrote a letter to the prosecutors, part of their negotiations, where he claimed that Jeffrey Epstein was pivotal in the creation and the founding of the Clinton Foundation.
Wow. That's amazing.
I don't think Jerry Lefcourt would lie. Okay.
Gotcha. I didn't mean to take you off of the Jean-Luc Brunel, but we kind of got just led you off of that. But Jean-Luc Brunel visited Epstein the most while he was in jail, and he was a roofing 15-year-old girls, and some of them came forward right during the Me Too movement.
Oh, absolutely. They came forward. There was a whole 60 minutes show about it, but you can't find it online anymore. It's disappeared.
Interesting.
But also, too, he visited Epstein more days than there were visiting days, meaning he visited him once, twice. Okay. Now, what were they? What kind of friendship did they have? What are they talking about? What could they be discussing? Jean-Luc Brunel had a reputation, too, as well, of these HB1 visas, that he had some kind of scam going on with these visas, that he could import these girls from all these Eastern European countries. They talk about Epstein having parties in Manhattan. This is all in publications. When he's had these parties in Manhattan, where suddenly a bunch of little 13, 14-year-old girls would come in dressed like hookers. They were Eastern European. How could you say no one knew about this? And this is New York City. It's been written about in New York Magazine. These kind of magazines.
It's just incredible. Have you ever heard the name Selena Jenkins? Or she's supposedly a trafficking woman from Eastern Europe as well. Have you heard her name?
And there's so many names. I don't know.
Jenkins. But it's just interesting that you brought up this Eastern European, because there's another woman who she has like meetings with the Pope, and she's friends with
Epstein. Epstein has a picture of the Pope. He has a picture of the Pope and a picture.
So you've never heard the name Jenkins in association with Epstein?
No, and there's a woman I've been dealing with named Jenkins. It's a real problem in my life. I would remember the name.
Okay, sorry. Well, she made a lot of money by salvaging, I think it was Barclays Bank. Really? She was an intermediary between a Middle Eastern money and Barclays, and she made quite a bit of money. But she's kind of she's been involved in supposedly a lot of human trafficking from Eastern Europe, and she's Yugoslavian, or she's really Yugoslavian native. But she wrote this book called Room 23 that features a lot of Hollywood celebrities and kind of Eyes Wide Shut gear and stuff like that. It's really weird.
Definitely try and book her for sure.
Well, good luck.
I know.
You can go look at her Instagram account, and it's pretty disturbing. But anyway,
But wait, by the way, real quick, Epstein, because I have the video of the search warrant execution of his Palm Beach mansion, which, by the way, the place was scrubbed before there. He had prior knowledge that there was going to be a raid. And they cleaned the place out, because everybody talks about there being nude photos of teenage girls on his walls and frames. And you could see wires hanging from the ceiling and stuff like that, where there was video camera equipment and stuff that had been removed. So there's all that. But he has pictures of Castro and the Pope in frames.
Like, right. So he's like with them, right?
Yeah.
Like shaking hands. Yeah. Wow,
And what's his name? Dershowitz, when he's trying to come up with his what do you call explanation of his association with Epstein, he says, "Well, I met Mr. Epstein at a party of Evelyn Rothschild's at her home."
God. Oh my God.
Okay, that's his.
And she's deep in Pizzagate. There's that picture of her with this guy from Media Matters, who was the boyfriend of James Alefantis. So it's a little kind of interesting little spider's web.
Oh yeah, and Epstein's connected to everybody, Netanyahu and all these people. The president,
right? He who
Colombia,
Barack, who was the head former prime minister of Israel, was on the black book for the so-called Lolita Express. And people who don't know, Epstein would fly to this island in the Bahamas or Little Bahamas, was it?
Virgin Islands.
Virgin Islands, sorry. And then he had some kind of weird Egyptian-inspired building on top with statuaries or statues, and then supposedly underneath that was a bunch of caverns, and that's where like acts of depravity would occur. That there's been rumors involving other known names out there. People who are in the news today. So
well, don't forget too that the governor down there, that Virgin Islands, is the former NYPD cop was down there, and his wife is employed by Jeffrey Epstein down there.
So it's just they're just own the tendrils are all through everything.
But let's not get.
Dershowitz himself, just so I can get this in, we talked about Virginia Roberts. She claimed that he raped her, right?
She claims that she was forced to have sex with Dershowitz, and that everything was so nonchalant that when she would be giving sex to Epstein, that he would just walk into the room and they would have conversations. Now, Dershowitz just came out recently and said that Jeffrey Epstein is still his client to this day.
Wow.
And he says, well, you know something? Once you're a lawyer and you take on a client, you never really stop being their lawyer.
yeah, you can. That's not true. But there was another woman who came out and claimed Dershowitz abused her too, right? So he has had two.
Oh no, I'm not familiar with that. What do you got there?
Okay, I thought that there was a second one. I'll have to look that up. But just as an aside, so a well-known name, kind of an alternate media, is this guy Mike Cernovich, who got involved in the Epstein case, and he was raising money to file a motion to obtain information. But the way that he publicly said it is that his interest was in the public interest, but the actual motion, and you can read, this is actually a fascinating little piece of legality because it was countered by David Boies, who is probably one of the top lawyers in the country, and he was involved in kind of all kinds of famous cases. What was it? Bush and Bush Gore, the vote recount. So Boies came in and put this other brief memo and showed that Cernovich's interest was not in the public interest. That was his argument, which I believe, that Cernovich was not in the public interest, but that he was trying to reveal or uncover these secretive names of abuse victims. And he was trying to do it for Dershowitz's benefit. So they were trying to uncover who some of these victims were, supposedly, allegedly. And the boys' motion that they put in court, or the response, included pictures of Cernovich with Dershowitz. Yeah. And they're known to be friends. So there's this kind of odd thing that this guy, Mike Cernovich, is seen as his truth teller. But in this circumstance involved in the Epstein case, where in my understanding, he's portraying himself as the white knight, it's not the case according to David Boies.
I'm no follower of Cernovich or a fan of his or whatsoever. I don't know who, and I'm finding out more and more that all these alt-right-wing guys, these Twitter characters, man, they're all being funded by Cambridge Analytica and that whole bunch, and the Mercers and the Kochs. More and more, I'm really seeing, my eyes are being opened to what's going on in this whole freaking quote-unquote alt media crap, And I'm totally out of the loop, man. I'm here starving to death, limping around with my hernia here. And these other guys, Project Veritas, are sitting back in it, and Laura Loomer flying around the country.
Yeah, how is she affording it? She went to South Africa. She's been all over the place.
These guys get a ton of funding. They
don't ever disclose it, which is a shame.
No, and they got all kinds of scams going on too behind the scenes. Anyway, just in general, these old media types raising funds for this and then kicking back the money to each other. From what I'm hearing and from what I've seen, I can testify if I had to. Let's see. There's so much.
So we got off. So we were talking about Dershowitz. We covered.
One thing is the recent lawsuits came out. Everyone was lamenting about, oh my goodness, they settled this lawsuit, and now these poor girls. This is after the Miami Herald article came out, and they settled these lawsuits. So now these girls will never get their voices, will never be heard. Boo hoo, boo hoo. But if people really look at that, that was a defamation lawsuit that everybody's happy with. Okay, all the plaintiffs are happy with that settlement. They got paid off. But that, if you go back, you're the one that tipped me off about this. That was the same gaggle, I guess you'd call it, of defamation lawsuits and bar complaints that all went back and forth between Brad Edwards and Dershowitz back then. Remember on a Friday night you sent me that? Yeah. And you said, hey, Friday night document dump to keep it out of the press. And it was Dershowitz with his press release about how he's backing out of this lawsuit and declaring victory in a way. But they all went on. They all continued. And that if Dershowitz would have stayed in, he would have lost too. He would have had to make a settlement too in that. So...
Right. I mean, there's just all kinds of
so much here,
flying
man.
around this whole Epstein situation.
Even Jean-Luc Brunel sued Epstein, saying that his name coming out and all this because he visited him 53 times in 1 year, more than there were weeks in a year. And he sued Epstein too. There's a lot of some of these are convenient lawsuits back and forth, just settlements and silencing each other and. But there's so much in this case that even I can't keep up with it all. And I've been talking about this before anybody. I don't want to toot my own horn or pat myself on the back, but it's just a fact, and there's just so much going on.
Right.
Here.
Nobody else in the alternative media really wants to even talk about Epstein. It's a very important case, super important, because of his ties all throughout everything. And everybody just denies it. Don't know him.
Unless it's Clinton, unless they want to throw Clinton's name in there, like a Liz Cronkite, right away it's a Clinton story. Hey, listen, I'm not saying the Clintons aren't perverts, and they're not killers, they're not coke smugglers, they're not CIA. They are. They're a crime family. There's no doubt about that, and they're up to their necks and all this stuff like that. But so is everybody else. I don't think there's anybody left out of this case. You got Courtney Love and who's that guy? Chris Tucker are involved in
Chris
this
Tucker, right?
Ken
What's Chris
Spacey.
Tucker in that group? Oh my gosh!
Well, get this, man. The same flight, the one everybody, the way we found out about Epstein was because Bill Clinton hopped a flight to Africa on Epstein's plane with Chris Tucker, Kevin Spacey, and I think there was even a couple of porn stars on that flight. But the thing is, Chris Tucker has his own shenanigans. First of all, he has his own plane, too. They all do. Everybody named here got their own plane, their private planes. And if you've ever been around these private airports, a lot of shenanigans going on there.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Where do you think the drugs come into this country?
90% of them, yeah, flown around the country on private, especially now.
Private jets, yeah. These private jets is really the real transportation. They don't come through the major thoroughfares at all. It's all a lot of private jets.
Yeah, especially now. In the old days, you could get, through the, with a coat full of money and stuff like that. You can't do that anymore.
Did you remember that there was a story of a famous Mexican Latino musician, and one of the planes went down, and it was like full of coke too.
Oh yeah.
So people, it was great.
Well, Trump's helicopter pilot was a coke dealer. That stuff goes on all over the place.
All over.
But what were we saying though before that?
Anyway, so just this how many different people are involved.
Oh yeah, Chris Tucker was involved with snatching up that kid Gavino. That Michael Jackson was molesting. When that thing came out in the press, Michael Jackson says, "Go get little Gavino, bring him to me." And Chris Tucker hops on his private plane and delivers this kid to Michael Jackson for his safety, because they're worried about this kid.
It's just incredible. I mean, and there's other stories of visitors, like Crazy Days and Nights has done some reporting about Epstein's Island and people secretly going there to indulge in their, particular interests. So Kevin Spacey, even before that, he got sued in civil court by that person in New York. They had him pigeonholed. Well, not, they had him tagged as somebody who was interested in those types of encounters.
Forget, Trump has his own island too. He has a $13 million piece of property on that island, $13 million mansion on there that was untouched in the hurricane. But I think he still got some money for it. And it's a boat ride. It's a tiny little boat ride or a little private jet ride of 10 minutes to Epstein's Island.
That's interesting you say that, because in one of the CDAN stories, there was a story about people taking the boat in so that there's no record of a flight. So people would just not fly with Jeffrey. They would fly into some other place and then boat him.
Those flight logs, it's a private pilot, but you can write anything there. Half of that stuff is misspelled. It's illegible. You can't figure out what it, And also, too, what was the other thing is Trump, too. Epstein's flown on Trump has flown on Epstein's lawsuit. We know that from a deposition of Epstein's brother. But Epstein's flown on Trump's plane. We know that. There's an article in Golf Digest, I think it's called, And the guy who wrote the article, the original article, talking about when Trump said, hey, that's some high-class pussy, best pussy money can buy, something like that. But he wrote a second article talking about how he was on Trump's plane. They were waiting for Epstein and Maxwell to show up, and when they was late, and Trump was saying, hey, you don't make a private pilot wait for, blah, blah, blah. He's making a joke. And they brought with them a little teenage girl who was made up to look older. He doesn't know how old she is. He's not making accusations like everybody's afraid to do. But come on, you got a guy here who's, this is his focus in life, 24 hours a day, is little girls. And he's got a little girl with him on Trump's plane.
Right. So, I mean, but that's the whole thing, that you see these little vignette stories, is that's probably what Epstein was doing for decades,
Oh, yeah, there's no
before
doubt.
Bush. What's that?
There's no doubt. This is his life's focus. He's hanging out with guys like Woody Allen, and all these other characters, And he, by the way, too, just recently Steve Bannon went to visit Epstein. We don't know what they went there
that's
to talk
right.
about.
Recently, yeah.
Okay, let's take a poll. How weird does it feel to be called someone's fiance, right? The first time you hear it, you do like a double take. Your heart kind of flutters, and before you know it, you go from, let's just enjoy this moment, to, we're planning a fall wedding. That's where Zola comes in. Zola has everything you need to plan your wedding in one place and have fun along the way. From free planning tools like a budget tracker, super necessary, and website, to a venue and vendor discovery tool that matches you with your dream team, everything on Zola is designed to make your wedding journey as easy as possible. And with invites that can be completely customized and a wedding registry packed with gifts you actually want. Zola takes you from save our date to thanks so much without breaking a sweat. From getting engaged to getting married, Zola has everything you need to plan your wedding in one place. Start planning at Zola.com. That's ZOLA.com. Happy wedding.
Hey there. Ritual here to give a big shout out to you for making it through the hectic holiday season. The magic of those family moments, that was you. And now there's new milestones to prep for in 2025. This new year, check clean, quality pregnancy nutrient support off your to-do list with Ritual. We've done the research to create science-backed pregnancy support like our prenatal multivitamin, natal choline, and fertility support, all designed to be taken alongside each other. But don't just take our word for it. They're also third-party tested for microbes and heavy metals and Clean Label Project certified. So whether you're trying, thinking about trying, or already there, we don't have to tell you that prioritizing yourself can be the hardest part. That's why we're helping you get started today with 30% off a 3-month supply for a limited time at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply.
Come on, it's under our noses. And Bannon,
and
by
you
the
did
way,
that show about Bannon's peculiar lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
It's called
meth making, possibly. Who knows?
The Porn and Meth House. There's no doubt that Steve Bannon's ex-wife down there was involved in porn, involved in modeling, all this nonsense. Cops were at that house. The guys who lived there afterwards, I interviewed him. He has a background that's very interesting himself. All the people around that story have an interesting background. I can't say legally, but the thing is,
I understand.
Okay, because it's a crime to name people's occupations, what you suspect they do. But the thing is what do you call it? They have studies of the meth down there. They have police reports. Bannon's wife was caught trying to smuggle marijuana and a cell phone into her boyfriend when he was in jail. Okay, all this is not some kind of bizarre. Porn stars showed up at the house looking there. But what was told by the people that lived there, is that there were padlocks on the inside of the doors and windows, keeping people inside of that house. And at the very end of that interview, if you listen, it's in the Opperman Report members section. He says, and we're hoping that this will escalate into, because we've talked to the police, we're hoping this will escalate into a greater investigation into human trafficking and other cases in Palm Beach.
Wow. Yeah, it's just incredible.
Well, you know, and we can have this whole conversation without once saying Lolita Express and Pedophile Island, because there's a lot
Right,
going
because there's
on.
more than that, right?
Yeah, there's, you know, the whole New Mexico, man. He was hanging out with the governor of New Mexico, who's another Clinton guy, another big shot. I forget his name at the moment. But he has a big ranch down there. A lot of stuff went on there, too. It's in New York, New Mexico. Forget the island, man. You know, but still, too. Trump's got an island there. There's boats going back and forth. There's plenty of traffic to that island. It's undocumented.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is that that's like in the super global elite, getting an island and having a place to go to is you know, it's like the cherry on top of your wealth. It's not uncommon for a lot of these rich people to have these islands in the Caribbean. Nexium was involved with what's that one guy who owned Virgin Airlines? Nexium was down,
Branson.
You know, down
Branson.
Yeah, Branson. So there's pictures of them together partying.
Yeah, well,
so all these guys are up to not really savory things at these islands.
Yeah, there's a lot of photos of Richard Branson out there floating around too, and also to what's his name, to Adnan Khashoggi. There's all kinds of things with his shenanigans going on there. He openly admitted to being involved in prostitution and human trafficking when it came up to Linda Mills, or you know, Paul McCartney's wife, the one-legged woman. But that was the one time he ever admitted, yeah, I've used prostitutes. Her. You know, but otherwise, you know, God, look around this guy, and he's another Trump buddy with his own island. Another guy too is Copperfield. You know, I've had people come to me.
He has an island too, and there's all kinds of shenanigans about him on those islands too.
Really credible allegations about him. I've done a whole show about it. Where then, after the woman who reported him was chased around in different states and arrested on other charges, and to totally silenced her, man. So whatever's going on down there, you know, there's something going on there. But a couple of things too about my interview with Michael Gross and the stuff I've done about Trump and his family and these kinds of things too. I was going back and forth with Tom Arnold, you know, who's doing that the tapes. He's trying to come up with the tapes for Vice TV, and so
he's trying to get Trump.
Right. So I contact him with some blockbuster information that I think is blockbuster. Turns out he knows everything I know. He knows everything. This is all common knowledge. Everybody knows about this little 16-year-old that worked, you know, this is not even in the press anywhere. You know, you can't get this stuff anywhere. But everybody knows these stories. And he comes back at me with something I didn't know. He's talking about, he's talking about the case of Jared Kushner's father. I think it was Charlie Kushner. Who he wanted to donate money to politicians so badly that he was creating fake accounts and fake partnerships and stuff like that because he had to donate money to Democrats, mostly, by the way. And he gets caught doing this. His own brother starts cooperating with the FBI and Richard Christie's office.
Right. Christie was involved in the prosecution of Kushner's dad, and that's why he got elbowed out.
So Kushner's dad, I think it's Charlie Kushner, comes up with a plan. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hire some prostitutes to go and seduce my brother-in-law who's testifying against me, and then I'm going to blackmail him.
Right.
So right off the bat, I'm thinking, what kind of sleazy guy does this? You know, how would you let your daughter marry into that family? That's the kind of thing I wouldn't want to be involved in, right? Me, because I'm a silly goose, right? But what I find out is, from Tom Arnold, he puts out a tweet saying teenage Russian prostitutes.
Wow.
The girl in that case is a teenage Russian prostitute.
Wow. So that's always skipped over in that case. They never talk about it. It's just a prostitute.
I've been looking for it. I can't find it. It's a teenage Russian prostitute, according to Tom Arnold's source. But the thing is, man, this is what I'm talking about, man. There's so much going on here, you know. There's even a connection, too, between, I can't talk about 100%, but I think you would know off the air we've talked, is there's a connection between Stormy Daniels and the Katie Doe lawsuit. Okay, and Mueller's not talking to anybody about that stuff. He hasn't contacted anybody about any of that. Let me ask you another question, too. Everybody's doing the sign of the cross when they talk about this Miami Herald article. How come no one from the Miami Herald contacted me to say, hey, man, what do you know? You're a professional investigator. You've been working on this longer than anybody else. What do you know that you can't talk about on the air? Let's talk to us off the record. Hey, we want to hire you and pay you a couple of bucks.
Right.
How come? Why not everyone
I
else?
don't know. Maybe they listen to all your shows. You don't know.
Yeah, but everybody else who listens to the show contacts me. They want to talk about this, except for Mueller and the Miami Herald. Okay, who else? You know what I mean? Well, what's going on here, man? You know, I'm very suspicious, and I'm a lot more cautious than I was 5 years ago when I first started talking about this, because there's many levels to all this that people aren't even scratching the surface. And if I can wake up one day, I get a message from Tom Arnold of all sources, and I'm scratching my head saying, "Whoa," you know. And I'm hearing these other things from people like Michael Gross and these young girls. There's got to be even 10 times more than that out there.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it. Ed, we are at 55 minutes. Is there anything you'd like to follow up or kind of close up with?
Yes, I would like to close up with a nap. William Ramsey,
Yeah.
thank you so much, man. I really appreciate this. It feels good sometimes to talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about, and to get
I appreciate it.
and to get this off my chest. And a lot of stuff. We didn't even get into Ben Sass and his connections to Dennis Hassert, who was accused of molesting these wrestling kids, right? And they're connected. He worked for Hassert,
No, I didn't know that. I didn't know he worked under Hastert.
Oh yeah, and he's a wrestler himself. That good old Ben Sass.
Oh,
and he visits these high schools. In fact, he was in charge of the House Page program. Remember the whole scandal about the Page?
Yeah,
Good old Sass. He must be a hero in all this, looking to uncover bad things.
But where can people hear your interviews or your Epstein shows? They can go to your website, Opperman Report, and your YouTube channel and subscribe.
OppermanReport.com is the website. You can go there. There's a special member section with about 400 hours of material, exclusive stuff you won't find anywhere else. There's documents in there. There's all kind of Epstein documents, Trump documents, videos of the search warrant affidavit. My show airs Friday nights and Saturday nights. You can find it on Spreaker, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, American Freedom Radio, People's Internet Radio, Public Streaming Network, IPM Nation. A lot of different internet stations carry it. You can find me if you need to hire a PI, you need somebody who knows what they're doing. Emailrevealer.com. You can get email tracing, online infidelity, forensics, cell phone forensics, computer forensics, asset searches, adoption investigations. I'm a working PI. I work full-time as a private investigator. You got a problem, get a hold of me. I can get you out of it. Okay. Thank you so much, William.
Awesome. Thanks, Ed. Appreciate it.
All right.
Okay, bye. All right, we're done.
Okay, let's take a poll. How weird does it feel to be called someone's fiance, right? The first time you hear it, you do like a double take. Your heart kind of flutters, and before you know it, you go from, let's just enjoy this moment, to we're planning a fall wedding. That's where Zola comes in. Zola has everything you need to plan your wedding in one place and have fun along the way. From free planning tools like a budget tracker, super necessary, and website, to a venue and vendor discovery tool that matches you with your dream team, everything on Zola is designed to make your wedding journey as easy as possible. And with invites that can be completely customized and a wedding registry packed with gifts you actually want. Zola takes you from save our date to thanks so much without breaking a sweat. From getting engaged to getting married, Zola has everything you need to plan your wedding in one place. Start planning at Zola.com. That's ZOLA.com. Happy wedding.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.